So I just wanted to introduce myself. I'm Joan Hinton, President of the Federation of Civics. We are just going to take care of just a few things that we need to take care of tonight, and that's our minutes, just the approval of the minutes. Can I have a motion to approve the February 13th minutes?
So moved. I second that motion.
Thank you. And how about the March 13th minutes?
Second.
Great.
One thing for Secretary's report, is there anybody who has not signed in except Scott Sullivan? Anybody besides me? Okay. Thank you. Just be sure you sign in.
Okay, so we are here tonight because the residents throughout the entire township have been talking about this issue with our taxes and the school district for a very long time, and actually since 1999, as far as I can remember, when I was president of the Shortridge Civic Association in Wynwood, people were moving out of the township, they told me, because their taxes were going up, and that was back in 1999. So because of all the interest in what is going on now, we are here, people just want to know more. So they wanted to hear from Mr. Arthur Wolk, Attorney Arthur Wolk, directly. And what they want to hear is, they want to hear about his involvement, what they would like to hear his presentation, about his involvement, what got him involved, and what he can say about the court case. Our May 11th meeting will be at the school district with Superintendent Copeland and officials from the school district. We were invited to go there. So that is on May 11th. In June, we are having Bob Duncan and Chris Leslie come to us on June 12th at the Bryn Mawr Community Center to talk about give us the most updated information on the new zoning ordinance. So if you haven't been paying attention to that, you should. You should be paying attention to that because it's very, very important. So, this is tonight. This is how things are going to go tonight. We're going to start with Arthur Wolk's presentation. We will entertain questions after his presentation. We are here for informational purposes, and we will all be courteous and respectful. Agreed? Yes. So let's begin. Thank you. Yes, Mr. Wolk.
I hope I get close when I'm done. My name is Arthur Wolk. I live in Lappin. I've lived there for just about 30 years. I want you to know that I've paid my school taxes without complaint for each of those 30 years. You probably have heard a little bit about me because I filed a lawsuit against the Lower Merion School District last year. And it was concerning what I saw was a completely out of control school district with respect to raising taxes. It didn't make any sense to me how the school district would raise taxes 57% in 10 years. It was much higher than inflation, much higher than any school district that raised taxes anywhere in the Commonwealth. In fact, it's the largest hike in school taxes anywhere in the nation. So I decided to file this lawsuit, learn more about how the school district was functioning, and I was fortunate to be aided by someone who was the financial manager and school district director from a neighboring school district, who could help me understand just how complex, and they are, and difficult to understand school taxing procedures are. But by the time I finish, which won't be long tonight, you'll be as expert as I have become in school taxes. One of the reasons why I'm especially grateful for the opportunity to speak to you tonight is because I wanted to debunk some of the things that have been said by people about this lawsuit. A judge in Montgomery County, Judge Smythe, ruled after a trial that the school district of Lower Merion, and I'm systematically misrepresented its needs for tax increases and had illegally raised taxes 55% in 10 years while accumulating a surplus of over $60 million. In other words, today, there is over $60 million in the bank account of the Lower Merion School District, a school district which is permitted only to have $20 million. That extra $40 million belongs to you. Now, he also found that the school district violated the Taxpayer Relief Act. Now, I'm sure you think about the title of that act as having no application for you because you don't have any relief from taxes. It was intended to provide relief to taxpayers from school districts raising taxes without reason. And it was enacted in the early 2000s for purposes of bringing some accountability to school districts. And I'm going to explain to you in a minute how it worked. Anyway, he issued an injunction which cut last year's school tax increase, 4.44%. He cut it essentially in half. You all paid your taxes based on that 4.44% because they took an appeal to the Commonwealth Court. So the difference between what the judge said was okay to raise taxes, about 2.4%, and the 4.4% is in escrow. If we win in the Court of Appeals, that money is going to be refunded to you. Now, in spite of the judge's decision, where he found as a matter of fact that the school district misrepresented and raised taxes illegally, they just raised taxes again for the ensuing year, 3.85%. So they still don't get it. They still don't understand that they acted illegally. Now you might say to yourself, oh yeah, but that's just lawyer talk. This is just some lawyer who managed to be able to pull the wool over the eyes of some judge. Well, guess what? The judge based his opinion not on what I said, but the testimony that I got from the school district's own business manager. He was sitting in the back of the room. I called him up, made him testify, and he spilled the beans because he wasn't ready. And it was his admissions, not my argument, that caused the judge to conclude that the school district has been acting illegally. I want to tell you what this lawsuit isn't, because there has been so much said about the lawsuit that I've read in the papers. I'm saying, gee, I can have it. I wrote this thing, and that's not what I said. But anyway, I am not in favor of inferior schools. I am not against public education. I'm a public school graduate in Philly and grew up on the street. I can assure you that I am very much in favor of public schools. I am not in favor of charter schools. I've been accused of saying that, and I don't even know about this movement. I don't know the first thing about charter schools, but I understand that that's apparently some way to get around union contracts and stuff like that. At lesser cost per student. I don't even know about that stuff except what I've been told, and I'm not in favor of that. I'm in favor of public schools, good public schools. I'm not in favor of larger class sizes, and I'm not some rich guy who wants to avoid paying his taxes. I pay my taxes, I don't complain about it, but I don't like being ripped off. I'm not going to be ripped off. I'm going to make sure you're not ripped off anymore also. So, what is it that the lawsuit is designed to accomplish? What are those things that I've been trying to do here? First, I want the school district to follow the law. We have laws so that we have predictability from our government. Our government is bound by those laws, and we have good reason to expect them to abide by those laws. They are enacted to protect us. And we can't have people who thumb their noses at the law and do whatever they want, like the school district. I want the school district to tax only for what they need to spend. Now you say to yourself, well, gee, and I'm going to talk to you about it, you're going to see a slide, you're not even going to believe what's going on here in the school district. Since 1873, the Supreme Court of Pennsylvania has ruled repeatedly that a municipality, like the township of Lower Merion, for example, or Narberth, or a school district, can only tax for what it needs. It is not allowed to accumulate the surplus, except in the limited way we're talking about. It's not allowed to tax for money it doesn't need to spend for specific expenses. That's against the law. That's why the judge held that what the district was doing was illegal. I want a refund for the taxpayers of Lower Merion and Norwood of $40 million of the $60 million that they illegally collected. It's not their property, it's your money. And I want you to get a refund for that. I can tell you what I'm going to do with my refund. I'm going to give it to some poor Philadelphia school where they don't have toilet paper in the bathroom, where the teachers don't have pencils and paper to give their kids. I'm going to give my refund to those people. I'm not looking, it's not about me, it's not about to enrich me. It's about to make sure that we have honest government. I want the district to come to us as taxpayers to have a referendum if they want to raise taxes. That's what the Taxpayer Relief Act says. I'm going to tell you how they've been getting around it. We are entitled to vote on school tax increases. I want us to vote when they want to raise taxes. I want them to demonstrate the need to us. I want accurate budgeting, not surplus budgeting. Accurate budgeting means that you project your expenses and you tax to meet those expenses. If you can meet those expenses with the revenues you have, then you don't have to increase taxes. Surplus budgeting is when you know what your expenses are, but you increase taxes anyway because you want to enlarge your surplus, like the school district's been doing for 12 years. That's how they got to $60 million. I'm going to tell you how that relates to their actual expenses in just a second. I want the school board directors to resign. They're failures. They've demonstrated their failures. They've been at it for a long time, and they've done the same illegal things for years. They need to go. This is not a political statement. Look, I don't care whether you're Republican or you're Democrat. Just vote for somebody to change, to make a change. People who want to do something differently. Vote for your conscience. Learn who's running. We'll talk about those in just a second. I want a superintendent who's honest. I want somebody who gets up there and tells you like it is and doesn't lie to your face. That makes me so angry. He's a superintendent. He's supposed to be teaching the children to be honest in the way they conduct themselves. Well, for him to be dishonest is the worst possible message. And by the way, for the kind of money he makes, we ought to have a superintendent who's got a PhD. That's what I think. I want any surplus that they have in a year of their budgeting, for example, like last year, I want that credited to the next year. Why should we have a tax increase when they had surplus the year before? Why shouldn't they take that surplus and apply it to whatever tax increase they have to have? Not want, but have to have. I want the people fired who authorized the surreptitious video taping of our children through spyware installed in their computers. That, to me, is child pornography. You know what your kids look like when they're in front of their computers doing their homework. And as a parent, I am appalled that no one went to jail for that. Now, I didn't sue the school board directors. I should have, but I didn't. The only person who said I should have done it and wants me to do it, guess who? The lawyer for the school board. Now, I didn't sue them because they're individuals, they work for nothing, and even if they do a bad job, I don't think they would get sued for what they did, yet. But I will tell you this. They went and hired a law firm, Drinker, Reel and Reith, that's costing us $2,000 an hour. They've spent $200,000 of our money when they weren't even sued to defend themselves. Defend them from what? I didn't sue them. And by the time it's over, it'll be $1 million. How about the law firm that represents the school board? Fortunately, there's an insurance policy that, so they're getting paid by an insurance company to defend this. But it's kind of funny. As part of this, I looked into the money we pay this law firm every year. They have what's called a retainer. It's about $12,000. They were paid $900,000 by the school district. Why? Because the school district litigates everything. They fight everything. Got a child with special needs? They fight you. Got a child that doesn't have special needs? They fight you. You have an issue with the school board, they fight you. $900,000 on lawyers. That tells you something. You know, as a business person, you don't have to be a lawyer to understand this. If you're a business person and you're litigating everything, there's something wrong with the way you conduct your business. You got a $270 million budget, you're spending $1 million on lawyers? There's something wrong with that. The person who's authorizing that litigation needs to go. Now, I want to talk to you about what I see wrong with the system. We have the highest per student cost of any school district in the nation. In the nation. $31,000 a child. It's about the same as what you pay for private school. We have the highest percentage of non-classroom expenses of any school district in the nation. It's a great distinction. Let me give you a picture of it in numbers. $270 million budget, right? About $100 million of it is spent on administration, not in the classroom. $100 million. You know how many children we have in the school system? Anybody know? 8,400 kids. $270 million to educate 8,400 children? $100 million of which is spent when people who aren't in the classroom teaching? You don't have to be an economist or an accountant to understand how messed up that is. It's just really sick. We have the highest cost per square foot for school construction in the nation. In the nation. We have dropped to 400th in terms of our rating of student performance in the nation. We spend more per student than any suburban school district anywhere. We spend more than double per student than school districts in the burbs that have done better than us. There's something wrong here. Now, I don't want to waste a lot of your time, and at the end, so I'll give you like an incentive to listen, is I have something that will absolutely stun you, a revelation that will stun you. There are some things I want to make clear, though. They're very important to me. As a resident, as your neighbor, hopefully your friend at the end of this, I will accept no compensation for the work that I'm doing for my community. I will accept nothing for a reimbursement of the expenses. They have been sizable that I have incurred in this case. I didn't start it to make money. I don't want any money. Any refund I get, as I told you, I'll give to a poor public school or teachers who can't afford it. It's not about me, it's about government. If we don't start at the lowest level of government to try to clean up this mess, and it goes all the way up, as we all know, what we've got to do, somebody has to do it. I'm going to try to get other lawyers who are as old as me, but half of them are dead. I guess they're in the Oddfellow Cemetery. But anyway, bottom line is we've got to get everybody who's a lawyer who can afford to spend some time to help clean up government. It's really out of control. Okay, so we prepared some slides for you, and we also used some of the slides that they did in the budget presentation by the school board. You're going to not believe this stuff by the time you're done, and it's only a few slides, I promise I won't bore you. So the school district put in its budget book, it said that there were two decisions that really matter. Oh, really? Only two. In 2004, the Lower Merion Board of School Directors authorized the building of 2 new high schools. Well, that's an interesting comment. That resulted in our being in debt, get ready, hold on to your hat, $270 million. That's what all of us are in debt to build those schools. There was not a referendum. There was a law called the Act 34. It's what's called the Taj Mahal School Act. And that was enacted by the legislature to prevent school districts from spending this kind of money on schools that were as grandiose as the Taj Mahal. Well, let me explain something to you. Both Harrington and Lower Merion High School are many times larger than the Taj Mahal. They cost way more than the Taj Mahal. They are the quintessential examples of what that act was designed to prevent. Now, what did the act say? It said if you were a school district, you want to build a school that's a Taj Mahal, you got to go to the voters, right? The voters are going to pay for it. They're going to be in debt. You got to go to them let's have a referendum. They didn't. They didn't. They got around it by accumulating a large surplus, by redistricting the area for Lower Merion and Harrington so that they could claim that they needed it for the expansion of the school population, and they had the money for the down payment, so they never came to us for our authorization to get us in debt, $270 million. Now let's think about that number. That's $250 million that we have in debt. A lot of you are old enough, like me, to remember Senator Everett Dirksen. Remember him? And he said, when Lyndon Johnson was asking for billions of dollars to fund the Vietnam War, he said, you know what? Billion here, billion there, pretty soon you're talking about real money. And that's really true. When you're in debt $270 million and you have an annual budget of about the same, $270 million, you're talking about real money. And when you're talking about real money, you have to be real careful. And the Lower Merion School District is not careful. It's just acting illegal. So, they also said in the spring of 2007, the Lower Merion School District Committee voted against an earned income tax or personal income tax. Well, of course they did. Because if you had given them the right to raise personal income taxes or earned income taxes, can you imagine what your taxes would be like? You would have property taxes in addition to those taxes. You wouldn't need Arthur Wolk. You'd hire your own lawyer to do this job. But I'm telling you right now, every time they go to the voters turn down these absurd tax increases, which is why they don't do it anymore. Right? Okay. Next one, please. So what the school district has become very adroit at is ignoring something called the index. Now, let me tell you briefly how it is. Under the Taxpayer Relief Act, the Pennsylvania Board of Education, can think of that as a piece of wood in Harrisburg. Every year comes up with something called the index. Don't ask me how they come up with it. It's got a mysterious formula that only they know. But every year they come up with a number that a school district can raise taxes by that number without having a referendum. Okay? Without having a referendum. It's been around 2%, 2.4% over the years. We'll talk about that in a minute. But they have two exceptions, right? One exception is special education costs, and the other is pension costs, right? So if your pension costs are going to go up, and if your special ed costs are going to go up, they allow you to raise taxes to cover those two items over and above the index. Now remember what the Supreme Court said, you can only raise taxes if you need it. What the school district has done is they consider them to be entitled to the index amount, and they falsify the amount of special ed costs and pension obligations so they can raise taxes even more. How do we know that? I'm going to show you how we know that, because that's how they accumulated the $60 million. I want to put this in perspective for you. Let's call it 2.5%, because that's the new index. What's 2.5% of about $250 million? Somebody can do quick with math? It's about $20 million bucks. I'm sorry. It's not 20 million. It's about $7 million. Okay? That is the additional amount of money the school district gets just by raising taxes in accordance with the index. $7 million. So they have that additional money. They don't need any more than that. Their expenses aren't going up more than $7 million a year. And we know that because they could not have accumulated the $60 million if, in fact, the $7 million weren't sufficient to cover their increased costs, right? Okay. So let's talk about what they, in fact, did. These are school years, and I'm not going to go over every one of them. You're going to be crazy when you see this. These are the school years from 2006 to 2017-18. The index, the amount by which the Board of Education says they can raise taxes if they need it, was 32.4%. What did Lower Merion School District do? They raised taxes 57%. 57%. Now, slide three. This is also from the school district's budget presentation. You see that pie chart? If you looked at that pie chart, you would think that the vast majority of all this is spent in the classroom. The reality is that that pie chart is all wrong. The 56% is here, and the 44% that is not spent in the classroom is actually the sum of all of that. So the pie chart is misleading, and that's what the school district does all the time. It simply misleads all of us into thinking that they're going to have a deficit when they're not. Now let me give you an example. In slide number 4, the school district said that this is called the use of special education exceptions. They said that they were so efficient that they saved $1.8 million in special education costs in 4 years. False. They saved $7 million in special education costs in 4 years. And they never gave us credit for the $7 million they saved. That's a lie. But even if it wasn't a lie, where's our $1.8 million? Where's our credit for the $1.8 million in the next year's taxes? Missing in action. Next one, please. Then they said, this is so horrible. This shows you why not only should they lose their job, they should be behind bars. These are fiscally, this is PESAS. PESAS is the pension, the state pension obligation. Okay. So what they said was, look, we asked for increases, these exemptions, so we could raise taxes to cover our PESAS obligations. And guess what? We didn't use the money. We didn't use the money. How great is that? Even though we are entitled to raise taxes to meet those obligations, we didn't use the money. $3,703,000 since 2012. They got the right to raise taxes to collect that money and didn't need it, and didn't use it, didn't give it back to us, didn't give us credit, just threw it in the bank. And by the way, they also ignored the $7 million windfall they got, right, from raising the taxes for the index, which would have paid any of their increased obligations for PESAS or special ed. So it's even worse. I mean, it's so horrible. I can't even believe it. I'm no accountant, but I know how to see those numbers. Let's talk about slide 6. This is called fictitious lending. It's the reason it's lowered the value of our homes. Ask any builder, with the exception of one who I'll mention in a minute. It's increased the time on the market of houses that are for sale, and it's depressed the pricing. Now you got to remember that all the tax increases that we have been told about since 2006 or 7 were predicated on the doomsday scenario. If you recall, anybody goes to a school district meeting, the superintendent will get up and say, if we don't have a tax increase of at least 4 to 5%, our children will not have schools to go to. We'll have to cut programs. We may have to cut sushi Thursdays. The bottom line of the story is, every time they have said that, they have lied in your face. Let me show you. 2009, they advertised the budget deficit of $4.8 billion. The actual surplus was $9.5 million. There was no deficit. $5.6 million deficit in 2010, $2.1 million surplus. $5.1 million deficit in 2011, $15 million surplus. $8.8 million, $5 million surplus, and on and on. In just these years, 2009 to 2015, there were $45.7 million of surpluses, just those years. It's actually, today, it's about 65 million. Now, let me tell you what they do, which is unbelievable to me, but I call it hide the peanut. You're familiar with that shell game? There is a law that says a school district, like the size of Lower Merion, may only have an unassigned surplus of 8% of its budget. Okay? Now we come up with that number again. 8% of 250 million is around 20 million. Does that sound right? Better. I'm not as good at arithmetic, and obviously they aren't either. But the bottom line of the story is that allows about $20 million worth of surplus. That's called an unassigned surplus. So what do? Let's go to the next one. What they do is, you see, at the end of the fiscal year, they see how much money they have in the bank, and they say, well, wait a second, if we have more than 8%, then we're in violation of the law. So when they do the budget, when they show you the budget book, they say, are we under the 8% limit? Yes, 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 yes. And what do we find? No, because they actually falsified the amount of money that they had in the unassigned surplus. So you're saying to yourself, well, how do they do that? Well, this is what I found out. So they have what are called assigned accounts, right? So they've authorized the business manager, literally authorized him without going back to the board, that if he sees at the end of the fiscal year that they're in violation of the law, he writes a check to another account, and he calls it an assigned account. Now it's not an unassigned surplus, it's an assigned surplus. And that's how they get around the 8% rule. They've got surpluses like you've never seen. They have a surplus for pension obligations that they've been able to meet their pension obligations just with the regular budget. They've got $20 million in a pension reserve. Beyond making the pension payments as they come due. I'm sorry?
Why is an assigned surplus?
An assigned surplus is where the school district says this amount of money is to be used for something. So let's say pension obligation. Let's say capital expenditures. Let's say future land acquisition, something like that.
Future buildings.
That's right. So instead of coming back, this is how they got the schools built without our referendum. They put money in those accounts, and then the state says, well, you're going to pay for it. And they say, oh, we don't have to go to the voters. We've got all this money in the capital account that becomes an assigned surplus. Okay? So that's how they avoid the 8% limit. They now have in the bank 3 times the legal reserve. And they still have not given us a break on taxes. If they had not raised taxes 1 dime in the last 10 years, just not 10 cents, and not the index, right? Not even the index. No teacher would have lost his job. No administrator would have lost his job. No program would have to be cut. No building would have to be closed. There would have been nothing. No change. How do we know that? Because if you take the surpluses, as we pointed out in the last slide, that money was over and above their expenses for everything. And that money's in their bank account. If they needed it, it wouldn't be in the bank account, right? It would be spent. It's not spent. It's there. It's yours. At least $40 million out there. Almost done. Slide 8. Now, you may remember last April, the school district took advantage of the lower interest rates and refinanced about $50-something million of its bonds to a lower rate. That was actually good for us, except they overpaid for the underwriting costs. But in order to float a bond offering like that, you have to comply with the Securities and Exchange Commission rules, and it's a felony if you lie in that document. So why is that document good for us to look at? Because if you're afraid of going to jail for 10 years, you probably tell the truth in that document, right? Even if you don't tell the truth in the budget documents, okay? So here we go, and we see that the projected debt service, the amount of money we pay every year to service the debt on this $270 million worth of bonds is set forth here of $23.2 million. That's what they told the SEC their obligations are, not for the 50-something million dollars of bonds, all the bonds, right? Next slide, please. Oh, we should go back to the other one. I'm sorry, please. Okay. No, next one. Here's the bond total, by the way. We go back to that. Bond total, back one, please. Yeah, is almost $278 million. Now let's go to the next one. Next one, I may have to go back. Okay, go back two, please. Okay. So, let me tell you what, unfortunately, here we go. That's right. Okay. What Lower Merion told us in their budget document was that their debt service was $28.2 million. Their actual debt service was $23 million. That was $4.5 million difference, right? $4.5 million difference. And then I asked Mr. Orlando, I said, well, isn't there going to be a savings? You refinance the bond. So shouldn't there be some savings on interest? Well, yeah, there will be some savings. How much savings every year? $1.8 million. So you can take that $23 million and you can take 1.8 off of that. They lied to us to the tune of $6 million a year just in debt service. Just in debt service. There's another interesting point that happened during the trial. I said to him, well, how are we doing so far? We're 2 weeks away from the end of the fiscal year, so how are we doing so far? And he said, well, I don't remember. I said, well, when did you look at it? He said, 2 weeks ago. I said, well, what do you think it is? I really can't tell you. It might be a surplus. Last year, after they claimed they were going to have another $9 million shortfall, instead they had $3.2 million surplus. Did you get a $3.2 million refund? I mean, not that whole sum, but did you get a refund? No, you didn't get one? I didn't get one either. $3.2 million they had as another surplus last year. And by the way, in the budget, they said they'd have to write a check to cover it from their savings. You see that check? There wasn't a check. There never was going to be a check. Next slide. Okay. The district keeps coming to us and saying, you know, we have a gigantic increase in student population. In fact, it is so big, it's not only costing us a 1% a year increase, but soon we may have to build a new school. No surprise there. In fact, we may have to build a super kindergarten center where all the kindergartens come together in a single building. That's another one of our pet projects. So I went back to the same SEC document. I'm sorry it's so difficult to see, but there are at the moment 1,280 extra spaces in Lower Merion school buildings without adding a single child to a single class. What I mean is, if you have 20 kids in a classroom, you won't have to add another one to make it 20 more. There are 1,280 extra spaces across the board. If you use the school district's own student growth calculations, it will take them 7 years to fill every space. But it gets better. What did they tell the SEC about the growth? You have to take my word for this. After 2020, the student population goes down. So we don't even have the number of increased students to fill the spaces we already have before the student population is going down. What are we building the school for? What are we doing after? So there is a group out there, it's called Save LMSD, Lower Merion School District, I think is what it is, it's a website. And in that website, they really trash me pretty good. I don't care about that, I'm used to it. You know, if you're a lawyer long enough, being trashed is kind of like part of the job. But the bottom line of the story is, they tried to get 1,000 people to come to the appeal argument, and they got 3. One of whom was the founder of this organization, where they're asking me to contribute to prevent my lawsuit from going forward, and so they can do whatever they're going to do.
We're already scoring that.
You're right. Okay, so here's where we go. So I decided, and in the claim on the website, they say, you know, the school taxes are fair. There's no reason to lower school taxes. There's nothing wrong with our school taxes. And we need those taxes. And the person who founded this did have 5 children in the district. She only has 1 now. So I go and I look at the suggestion of somebody smarter than me, and I find out that in 2012, the founder of this organization, one of the things that school taxes are so fair, went to the Montgomery County Board of Assessment Appeals and reduced her taxes by 18%. In other words, we're paying 57% in school tax increases, she's paying 18%. No wonder she thinks it's so fair. If I was paying 18%, you wouldn't see me in front of you tonight. So this just shows you how sick that organization and its founder is, given the fact that she's not even paying the taxes that she would be paying. We're supporting her, we're subsidizing her, which is, to me, unfair. It's unfair. I think that everybody pays their fair share, but we keep government under control, so we're not paying more than our fair share. Now, I may have alluded to this before. I am about as apolitical as you get. I really have no interest whether I happen to be a registered Democrat, I just happen to be for convenience, but I vote however I see the personnel. It doesn't matter to me whether they're Republican or Democrat. And really, I look at that as a very important responsibility as a citizen. There are 3 people on the school board who are running for I am very disturbed that they were endorsed by the local Democratic Party, and I've made my views known on that, not that I mean anything to them. Laurie Ackman, Ben Driscoll, and Melissa Gilbert. Those 3 people have been important in this illegal conduct by the school district. They have voted for these tax increases, which they knew we have been told lies about. They have failed to comply with the law with respect to the 8% surplus. They have been complicit in this shell game. I have nothing against these people. I don't even know them. But they have been part and parcel of the failure of Lower Merion School District to fulfill their legal responsibilities. That's what the judge found. This is not me talking, it's the judge talking. But both the Democrat and Republican parties have and are supporting other candidates. All I'm saying is we already know that these guys can't do the job. We already know that they have failed us. So it doesn't really matter what political party you belong to. Let's give somebody else a chance. How bad can it be? Right? Let's give somebody else a chance. There are 3 Republicans running: Melissa Taddeo, who happens to be here tonight, Terry Spar, and A.J. Kate. I have met with them. They're really pretty smart. Democrats, David Yabel, Mary Brown, and Tanya Schreiber. I have met with several of those. They're very smart as well. You pick whoever you want. Research the people. Do your own due diligence. Figure out what makes you happy, whom you think will do a better job than what we have. Primaries coming up. If you're a registered Democrat, you can get rid of some of these incumbents by voting for other of the people who are running. Again, it doesn't matter to me who you vote for, but it seems to me it's time for a change. So I encourage you to get your friends out to vote, to familiarize yourself with the issue, to try to meet these people who are running for election, and they look like good people to me, and see if we can clean up this terrible mess that we have in the lower end school district. Thank you very much.
Would you like to take some questions? Sure. Some questions? Would you people have questions? Yes.
I have three. Number one, you showed all the empty seats. When you see the empty seats, though, there are different course class and whatever. You know, we're talking about 12 years, 13 years worth of children.
Right.
How are those 1280? How do I put it? How are those children allocated to meet that 1280 at their grade?
I know what your question is. There are some in every category, some in elementary, some in middle school, some in high school. So there's empty spaces in all of those categories. And all I'm saying is that before you start thinking about putting them out of school, fill the spaces. Right? Fill the spaces. If it's going to take you 7 years to fill the spaces, which it will, even by their standards or by their calculations, that's when the population starts to go down by what they call the SEC. That's my view of the matter. Now, you may recall some of the school board members were talking about some temporary classrooms. Look, if you have a period of 1, 2, 3 years where you're going to need some extra space, nobody likes temporary classrooms. I remember when I went to Northeast High, they had temporary classrooms because, you know, we had a million kids. And they're ugly, and we don't like them and stuff like that, but it's only for a couple of years before the population starts to go down. It's not such a big sacrifice. But that's a judgment that others smarter than me will make.
Did they actually lie to the SEC in that, what the following?
Well, it depends how you look at it. If their debt service is 28 million and they say it's 23 million, then they lie. It's not, it's 23 million, so they were truthful. If the student population is not as they claimed it was, they lie. Or they're lying to us now. I believe they're lying to us now. I believe everything in that document is true. And I think it's true because the alternative is jail time. They were trying to get lenders to give them a better interest rate. If you were a lender, what would you want to know? You'd want to know what your debt service really is. You want to know what's going to happen to you in the future as a student population, because that's going to affect your ability to have funding and things of that nature. Yes, sir.
I just wanted to know to what extent your discovery had yielded any information about whether this is an issue of the accountant supplying information that is incorrect, or the school board making decisions to change that information, or what is it both?
It's both. The reason it's both is because when the Taxpayer Relief Act was enacted, the school districts were literally between a rock and a hard place, right? Because they had limits, and they said, well, wait a minute, if we want to get around a referendum to build schools, or if we want to get around other limitations that they need, like the 8% rule, like that, we've got to come up with a way to scam the system. And so what they did was, they said, okay, we'll assume that the index means we can raise taxes without a need for that amount, right? So we're starting to say 2.5%. And then we'll come up with these exemptions. I've got to tell you, the exemptions are approved by a computer. No human being looks at them and looks at the need of the school district for the exemptions. So all they have to do is they go and they say, well, our special ed costs are going to increase $3 million and our teachers' obligations will increase $5 million. The computer says, oh, well, okay, boom. They get the exemption. They use that as a statement of fact for you in their budget document, and that's how they come up with these deficits that don't happen. Because the numbers they gave the state were never going to happen, right? And so you have the business manager, who's the guy who writes the form, the superintendent who signs the form, and the board that approves the whole shit. Let me answer the other.
So when you have the unassigned surplus and then you put it to the assigned surplus, does that ever get cashed, that difference, or can you put it back in the pot at the end of the fiscal year? So when they write that, so when they say it's for the capital improvement project for building, or so does that check? Because that's been always the question that I've had on that. What happens to that money then?
Well, right now it's just sitting in the bank.
So it just sits in the bank all part. They're just dividing it up.
Yeah,
just
put it-
create a finance.
That's right.
Okay.
So if you went to the school district's accounts today, if you went online, I don't know if they show each detail online today. You'll see a capital account with so much money in it, with a Pizzas account had 20 million in it. And then what they do is they move it from account to account as well, because they've got it's like a guy who sells drugs and he's got pockets full of cash, and he's got to figure out what's he going to do with this next batch of cash, you know, and he looks for like a McDonald's box to throw in, you know. I mean, that's what they're doing. You're just moving the money around. Yes, sir.
Well, isn't moving the unassigned money into a signed, this is a two-part question, account in itself illegal?
It is if it's done after the fiscal year, and I caught the Lower Merion School District doing just that. They allowed the business manager to move the money after the fiscal year was over, which is not permitted by state law, and he admitted it, by the way, he admitted it on the witness stand. And I'll give you the second part of your question. And the other thing they do is they gave him blanket authority. In other words, instead of going to the board and saying, we need to move money from here to there, and then giving him the authority, they gave him blanket authority so he wouldn't have to be bothered with it. You know why? Because it's plausible deniability, right?
Right. Okay, the second part of that question is, so they move it into an assigned account. Now, all of a sudden, these assigned accounts must be showing surpluses. And if somebody went through and did some forensic accounting to that, and all of a sudden there was a lot of extra money in those accounts, wouldn't that also be fraud?
That would be illegal as well. Look, you're talking to the choir here. I mean, I really believe this amounts to fraud on us as
I
taxpayers.
think two different frauds,
Yep.
one to cover the other. It's money laundering.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm not saying it's correct or not correct.
No, that is an argument. They've given a number of arguments. Their arguments were our special ed costs are going up, our Pizzas costs are going up, if we want to build a new school, we're going to need money for a down payment before they get us in debt over $300 million. Now the point is, by doing this, however, they are illegally avoiding our vote.
I understand.
Yeah, no, yes. So you're right about what you're saying. There's no question about that.
No, that's the argument over and over again. I'm not agreeing with this, because over this increased population now. I'm not saying I support it, I'm just saying that's what I'm always hearing.
Yes, and they say it all the time.
And if it's true, the point that they're saying is that what they're doing is incorrect, and our approval is.
It's illegal. What they're doing is illegal. That's what the judge found. He said that I'm issuing an injunction to put a stop to this illegal practice. His words.
So while this is being appealed, if it takes a year or two, and they have $60 million, is there anything to stop them from voting this spring to spend that money?
Well, you know, they know that we're looking, so that's different. They didn't have this surveillance on them before. They also know that if they were to try to do that, I would go back to the judge to see if he would find them in contempt. The reason there are no more proceedings at this moment in the lower court is because we want to see what the Commonwealth Court says about the judge's decision. For example, if the Commonwealth Court says the judge is totally wrong, this decision was ridiculous, and the school district can do whatever they want, we're doomed. But if it says instead that yes, the practice was illegal, it was a violation of our laws, the intendment, as the judge mentions it, of the Taxpayer Relief Act was to give us relief, and they're giving us no relief. They're violating the law, and they have to have referenda, and they have to return the money. If they were to say that, the next things I would file, for example, would be to get the $200,000 back from the directors for going and spending all this money for personal defense. And I'm sorry, you went ahead.
So they're right now voting on 2 expansions,
Yes.
multi-million-dollar expansions, both of them. So would they be allowed, do they have the freedom to push through those expansions?
Yeah, I'd say they do, and the problem is, or the good thing for us is, even if they vote for those expansions, my understanding that, and Scott probably knows better than me, but it's going to take a while before they get approvals from the township and other, to get that done. They might be able to put a couple of classrooms in there, not, you know, the portable kind, but any significant amount of money to build a building is going to require an awful long time. Once we get the decision from the Commonwealth Board, if it's in favor, they're not doing anything. I can tell you right now, they're going to sit down and we're going to start making demands. And those demands are going to be that we vote on school expansion.
When do you expect a decision from the Commonwealth?
I really did, and I can't believe it's not here already. I would expect it within 30 days.
So this has happened year after year, and my understanding is that they haven't won. So
Yes.
the auditing company, shouldn't they be liable also?
That's really amazing you bring that up. There is an audit every year, and the audit every year says that there was a surplus, says that there was no deficit, points out this. I mean, if you went online, you could see the audit. What the auditor, and this, what's the name, Orlando admitted this in the trial, the auditor has no function to perform an auditing function that we understand auditing functions to be. So, for example, the auditor, when he looks at the numbers, has no authority to say, you lied to the state and you lied to the voters, meaning the taxpayers. Has no authority. All he does is come up with a piece of paper that essentially says, you didn't put the money in the pockets of anybody who worked for the school district. You see what I'm saying?
Yes.
I just want to take a small break. Because Commissioner Churchill doesn't have a question, but he does have something that he wants to say about this.
Thank you very much. My name is Rick Churchill. I'm the Commissioner in Penguin, and your presentation is very gratuitous for what I just want to share with you for about a minute. And that is the school district wants to expand, have a permanent expansion at Penguin School, which should cost between $10 and $12 million. They want to do it, the neighbors don't want it. And all I would ask is that when the primaries come up in May and in November, the general election, please examine the school board candidates and investigate and see which ones are to your liking and which ones are not to your liking. But I just wanted to make that plug for us, and for those that were at the Gladwin Civic the last 2 weeks ago, I apologize for saying the same thing. Thank you.
Thank you. We have heard about that in Penguin many times at our federation meetings. We'll take 2 more questions.
Apropos of that comment, from Churchill, you got to go to the school board. You must go to the meetings. If you don't show up at the meetings, they figure they got a blank check. This gentleman.
If I remember correctly, you said there's about a $60 million surplus that exists now. You also mentioned that there was a payment made to defray the costs to get the 2 high schools.
I missed the last one.
There was a payment made to get the 2 high schools put through without a referendum.
Yes.
What was that dollar amount? That seems that big.
It's pretty large. It was, I remember, it was 40 million, it's some gigantic number. And then, because they borrowed several hundred million, so I'm thinking it had to be a 20% company. It was, I think, around $40 million. Sorry?
It was 49.
I'm just 40 million.
It was 49.
40 million, yeah.
So this total surplus is basically $100 million over that same time.
No, that $60 million surplus didn't exist back then. They had about a $40–50 million surplus. They spent 40. They actually never spent that total 40, by the way. That was simply something they told the school, the Board of Education. So they didn't actually spend it. What happened is they went in debt more than was anticipated. You may remember the school construction was out of control at that time. So, yeah, sir.
Why
You know, that's
he did with the best of intentions. I think it was myself, but nonetheless, the pushback is, well, they did it with some good intention.
personal interest in whatever expansion of programs and schools and whatever else they have. Secondly, I am told, on a psychological basis, that it provides them with a sense of control and a sense of grandiose behavior. You know what? I don't even worry about that. I want to know whether they're doing something illegal. I found that they're doing it illegal. I don't care what the reason is. I want it stopped.
Is there a municipality immunity for an accountant or a business manager that's done this for the past 6 years? Is there such a thing? I was just curious if you happen to know that. Someone-
Is there anyone in the room who can explain to me or to anyone why the Democratic committee endorsed the incumbents instead of having an open primary? Is there anyone that can explain the logic behind that?
Sure, I think we know better than anybody else. That's the way they've always done it. They have always done it.
Wait, we took a vote, guys. And they said, who's the vote? They voted at
I know, why?
They took a vote.
What struck me was, in the face of an opinion from a judge that says that those three people were involved in an illegal practice, why was there even a vote? They shouldn't even been invited to the meeting.
I suspect a lot of them are, and they're not too careful.
Yeah, okay, the Federation is really not supposed to be political, and we are, and we have to go backwards. not
Just one more. If they're going to increase taxes, would you say 3.8% again this year?
3.85.
3.85. So if they drag this out until July, are we going to go for another injunction of the illegal tax increase again this year?
They can't drag it out to July. You're going to have an opinion from the Commonwealth. Commonwealth courts are in favor, that 3.85 is what happened. If the Commonwealth court, the decision is against it, you're lucky if it's not 4.8.
Somebody can take it to the next level.
Yeah, that's somebody, it's not the person you're looking for.
Well, I understand that, but it could go to the Supreme Court if the school district loses. It seems like they have no compunction to spend more dollars on lawyers.
Yeah, you're right, and I will say this. If we lose, I will petition the Supreme Court. If they lose, depending on how strong the opinion is, they may or may not. They may want to have an accommodation. And then I'm going to sit down with them, with a lot of people who know better this stuff than me, and do what we need to do to change the psyche.
What is the basis for
Their basis? Well, there was multiple bases. One, they said that the judge was trying to be a school board on his own and substitute himself for the judge of the school board. They said that they, in fact, were complying with all of the statutes that control, and they need the money.
Was the Board of Education, the State Board of Education approved their expenses?
That was another of their arguments, which of course we blew out pretty easily. And then they said that it was in fact a preliminary injunction that had to be dissolved in 10 days, not a permanent injunction, because there was no trial. There was in fact a trial. They did put on evidence. Then they also said that they had raised certain objections to this and that, which were still pending, and that therefore there could not be a trial. They waived all of that. So all I can tell you is this, it's the last thing I'm going to say. This is a lawyer who troubles me a lot. On the law, we win. On the facts, on this record, we win. If we don't win, something else.
Okay,